It must have been 2 or 3 weeks later. Nothing had happened. Jane had not phoned me. Dave had been around, of course. So he was home every night, late afternoon from work. Nothing had happened. I'd seen Dave a couple of times. We'd met, there's a little local pub. We'd met for a beer a couple of times. I'd been round once, they invited me around for a meal. But no strange goings on at all. Jane seemed normal, whatever that is. So that was that. Until Dave said, "Oh, I'm off to France." He was off to France for a week. He'd never worked abroad before, as far as I know. Only, he'd gone up north and the rest of it. But he was off to France. Of course, I thought, here we go. I'm going to get phone call after phone call from Jane while Dave's away. Day 1 came and went. Nothing. Day 2, nothing. On the 3rd day, I was pleased she'd not phoned me. Because I could get on with my work. Sorry about this, by the way, that's what I'm in the middle of. On the other hand, I was intrigued. Why hasn't she phoned you? There's nothing going on at all. Anyway, I used to enjoy a bit of a walk around the block now and then when the sun was out. So I went for a walk, knocked on the door, rang the doorbell. First good sign was she opened the door worked. And she said, "Oh, hi Ray, come in, I'll put the kettle on." So I followed her through, and I said, "I haven't heard from you, so I take it everything's all right." She said, "Oh yes, everything's fine. Yeah, I've made a new friend." So I was just saying, "Oh well, that's good. I'm glad about that. It's meet the neighbours and things." And she just said, "Oh yeah, she comes round and we have a good old chat." And I thought, well, that's why she's not phoned me. And in fact, I did say to her, "That's why you've not been pestering me." And she laughed. And anyway, that was that. And I just happened to say, we're sitting there having coffee. I said, "Is she local? Is she in the road?" And she said, oh yes, local, yes." And then she said, "Oh, we're going to start on the garden soon." Sort of changed the subject. I thought, okay. So I went back to this friend a bit later. I said, "So is she next door? Is it one of the neighbours or what is it?" And she sort of evaded the question. She said again about the garden. "Oh, Dave wants a pond down the end, but we're going to do this and that." And I didn't think anything of it particularly. I just thought I don't know what I thought. And we were just sort of chatting, and I said, "Right, I'm off now. I must go." I said, I'll ring before I come round in future, just in case you got your friend here." And she just said, "Yeah, that's fine." I said, "I expect you're always on the phone to her, aren't you?" And she looked a bit, a bit odd. And she just said, "Oh, yes, I am, yes, yeah." I said, "Is she married?" And she said, "Yes, so anyway, yeah, come round again." She didn't answer the question. It was almost, it was strange. It was, as I said, she was sort of evading my questions, trying to change the subject. And as she didn't want to tell me. She'd started by saying, "Oh, I've made a new friend," and then she didn't want to tell me about this friend. As I got to the front door, I opened the front door. That was a result. It did actually open. And I said, "Okay, well, glad you got a friend." I said, "Oh, by the way, where did you meet her?" She said, "I was tidying the front garden. Met her out there. She was outside." Then, just as I was going down the path, she said, "Her name's Mary." I turned and faced her. I was just, what? I didn't say anything. I didn't know what to say. I couldn't say anything. I was just frozen. "Mary?" And I just, in the end, sort of said, "Oh, okay, right, and see you." And I walked off. Mary? I thought this is a coincidence. Someone local. Was it someone local? She didn't want to say whether it was a neighbour or whatever. What's going on? I gave it for the rest of that day, that evening. I sat at my place. I didn't even put the telly on. I was just thinking, Mary? Mary, it can't be. Not Mary. Not the Mary, surely. I didn't know what to think. I knew I had to go back and find out a bit more about this Mary, even though Jane was obviously reluctant to tell me anything. So I went back the next day. I didn't ring. I just went round, rang the doorbell. Door opened again. No sticking doors, so that's good. And Jane was fine. "Oh, hello again, Ray." She said, "Oh, come in." This is becoming a habit, or a regular visitor, whatever she said. and she's filling the kettle, and I went straight in. I said, Mary, do you not know where she lives, or do you not know her phone number? And she filled the kettle, and she sort of turned to look at me, and her face was, she looked worried. She said, yes, I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah. I said, well, is she married? Has she got kids? Or, how old is she? Oh, about my age. And I remember she answered that bit, and I said, married? I'm not sure. Anyway, she's filling the kettle and then talking about, not filling the kettle, pouring the coffee, talking about the garden again, obviously getting me away from that subject. And I was thinking, well, if this is a new friend of hers, they chat, Mary comes round, they chat. She doesn't know whether she's married or not. She doesn't know where she lives. She doesn't know her phone number. I'm thinking, this is all odd. Of course, in my mind, this is all adding up to, that dreadful word I don't like, to Mary the ghost. Was it the ghost, Mary? I don't know. Mary, very contrary. I don't know. I didn't know at the time. I didn't know. So anyway, we're having coffee, and I tried to broach the subject now and then. What is she? What are her hobbies? Does she like cooking? What's she into? That sort of thing. And time again, Jane just changed the subject, avoided it, or gave some half-hearted, mumbled answer. So I just thought, I'll leave it. It's best just to leave it. And then we're both sitting at the kitchen table. We were looking actually out of the window down there because she was talking about the garden. And this voice behind me said, hello. I looked round. Jane looked round. And Jane said, Mary, come in. And I'm thinking, Mary? Mary, this is Mary. Ordinary girl, about our age, 24, 25-ish. Ordinary looking girl, nothing strange. And my first thought was, I'd been wrong all along. It's just some girl, it's just some girl. It's not a ghost. So I said, hi, I'm Ray, and shook hands. She felt normal. She wasn't ice cold or anything. She felt normal, which was a relief, because I thought if she feels like putting my hand in the freezer, I'm off, I'm running off. I said, how did you get in? The front door was closed. And she said, no, it was open. Now, I specifically remember that I closed the door because I followed Jane in. I turned around to close the door. I closed it, I opened it a couple of inches and closed it again just to make sure it wasn't sticking, which it wasn't. So I definitely closed the door. So her saying it was open was most peculiar. Anyway, she sat down, joined us at the kitchen table, and started talking. She said, well, nice to meet you. And I said, I live up the road. And Dave phoned. We weren't chatting about anything in particular. The phone went in the lounge. It was Dave. So Jane went off, and she went for some time because obviously chatting to Dave, he was in France. So I said to Mary, I thought I'll ask her. I said, do you live locally? And she said, yes, I do. Yeah. So I said, well, in this road, you next door. Where are you? She said, oh, not far. So I'm thinking, here we go again. I said, oh, are you married? No, not married. No. So I didn't want her to feel that I was interrogating her, but I don't know. I said, you've been in the area long. You've been in the village long. Oh yeah, quite a while. I expect you're on the phone all the time to Jane, aren't you? Yes. And it was, well, are you or aren't you? I can't remember what else I asked her, but she just, like the way Jane had done, she just avoided and evaded and changed the subject. And the funny thing, I thought that she was just a sort of peculiar girl. She looked all right. She felt warm when I shook her hand. She wasn't kind of ghostly and frozen, just a bit weird. Jane finally finished her phone call with Dave and came back. I finished my coffee, and I thought I'd leave them to it. It was all a bit peculiar, but I just thought, I'll leave them to it. It was a couple of days later. I'd been giving it a lot of thought, especially the front door. The front door had been closed. Unless she had a key, there was no way she could have got in. So I was between jobs. I just finished one. I was about to start another. Sun was shining. I thought I'd go for a walk. round the block. On the way back, see Jane. Rang the bell. Jane opened the door, and she wasn't quite so jolly. Oh, hello. A bit surprised to see. Oh, hello. And I said, hi, just passing here. I've been for my walk. Thought I'd pop in. And she said, yes, come in. Took me into the lounge. There was Mary, sitting on the sofa, looking up at me. Not with a smile, with a little bit of, what's the expression? Like, oh, it's you, sort of expression. So I said, hi Mary, how you doing? I sort of came across as a bit jolly and the rest of it. And I said, oh, are you putting the kettle on? To Jane. I wanted to get her out of it. And she said, oh yes, okay. And she went to the kitchen to make some coffee. I sat down and I said to Mary, I know what this is all about. She said, what do you mean? I said, I know what it's all about. You used to live here. I thought at the time she's either going to think I'm mad or she's going to be worried because she knew what I meant. And she said, you still live here? And she looked like I was mad, looked at me like I was balmy. And I said, yeah, up till 20 years ago. And I was trying to read her expression to get her thoughts. She looked worried, and then I'm mad. She sort of looked at me like I'm weird. So I said, I know all about it. And she said, I don't know what you mean. I don't know what you're talking about. Jane came back in. The kettle was on, and she gathered up their 2 cups to fill them, make more coffee. And off she went again. And this Mary said, I really don't know what you're talking about. I said, yes, but you do. I said, you do. You used to live here up until 20 years ago. I said all this. And she said, I think you're mad. I don't know what you're talking about. And then she said to me, Jane was still in the kitchen. This was the strange bit. She said, I think you'd better leave. So Jane came back in at that point. She didn't hear what Mary had said. So I just said, oh, thanks for the coffee. And, Jane sat down and I'm sipping my coffee. And this Mary was looking at me. And whenever Jane wasn't looking at Mary was looking at me like that. Go, go. So eventually I went. I knew then there was definitely something wrong. That wasn't just that she was a bit peculiar or whatever. She wanted me out of the way. That was definite. That evening I was sitting in my lounge. It was quite late. It was dark. It was quite late, 11 o'clock, something like that. I thought I heard someone in the hall. Now my bungalow, the layout was the same as Jane's, a similar thing. And I walked through to the hall and there's Mary standing there. And initially I jumped, a bit of a scare. And I looked at my front door and I said, front door was open, was it? And she said, yes. So I said, you better come in. We went to the lounge. Funnily enough, I wasn't scared. I wasn't frightened. I was wary. I suppose at that point, I still wasn't sure who or what she was. And we didn't sit down. We just stood in the lounge. And she said, I want you to leave Jane alone. So I said, well, she's a friend of mine, her and Dave. I said, I've known Dave all my life. What do you mean, leave her alone? She said, I don't want you to go around there anymore to see her. And I said, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. They're friends. They live round the corner. There's no way I'm going to give up my friends just because whoever you are has come along and told me not to see. Crazy. No. And she said, I think you'd better because you'll regret it if you don't. So I said, no, I'm not giving them up. No, I was adamant. I wasn't having that. So she went back into the hall. I followed her into the hall. I was going to have a go at her. And she wasn't there. I hadn't heard the door open or shut, but she'd gone. And that, in my mind, that said to me, that's it. She is not of this world. She's weird. She is that dreadful word again, a ghost. The following day I went round to see Jane. I thought, I'm not having this. I'm going to tell her exactly what's going on. I went round there. It was quite early in the morning. I rang the doorbell. She opened the door and she said, oh, what do you want? Now that wasn't like Jane at all. Not at all. I said, I was just passing. I wanted to get in. I said, I was just passing, thought I'd pop round and make sure you're all right. And I sort of had to half push the door open and step in because she wasn't going to let me in. I don't think so anyway. So I closed the front door and I walked through to the kitchen, left her in the hall. She followed me and she said, no, I'm busy today. Sorry, I can't, I'm busy. I can't chat. And I said, oh, well, it's going to be 5 minutes. I was only passing. It's all right, I'm not going to take up your time. And I put the kettle on. And she was saying, I've got to go out. No, I've got to go out. You can't have coffee. So I put the kettle on, switched it on. I sat down and I said, I know what's going on, Jane. And she said, well, I don't know what you mean. I'm just busy. I wasn't quite sure. Mary wasn't there. I wasn't sure whether Mary had said to her, you get rid of Ray or what had happened. Something had happened since I last saw her, definitely. That wasn't the Jane I knew that I'd known for several years. And she wasn't going to have it. She took my arm and pulled me up from where I was sitting. She said, come on, you've got to go. And then she said, I don't want you to come round again. So I said, why is that, Mary? And she looked at me and she said, I'm Jane. And I said, no, you're not. And I was scared. The hairs, I was scared then. I was frightened. I thought, I don't like this word possessed, but that's what came into my mind immediately. This, Mary had possessed Jane. She got into Jane's body. Daft. I thought this is all daft, but what else could it be? That's what it was. Anyway, I left. I was almost kicked out. I left. I didn't know what to do. I just hadn't got a clue what to do. I thought of trying to contact Dave in France. He was due back. I think the next day or whenever. I didn't know how to contact him. I didn't know what to do. I didn't sleep at all well that night. I imagined Mary, walking through walls, through doors anyway, coming to see me in the night. I didn't sleep well at all, but I did have a plan, an idea in the night. So the following morning, I checked the electoral register. I got some names from that. Went into town. I then thought what I'd do is I'd go round some of the neighbours around Jane's bungalow, see if they remember, 20 years ago, about Mary living there. I tried one. They were new people. I tried to let this over the road. An old lady answered the door, elderly, and she said, oh yes, I remember Mary. Yeah, oh, come in. Are you a friend of hers? And all. I just said yes. And I said, oh, you remember her living there? And I said, I'm trying to contact her parents. And she said, oh well, I've got their address. I'm still in touch with them. We've stayed in touch. We don't visit, but we do Christmas cards, that sort of thing. So she said they're not far away. She said, it's just that we're all getting older, and we don't visit so much. Anyway, she gave me the address of Mary's parents. So she chatted a bit. She told me about Mary. She said she was always been a disturbed girl. Even when she was young, she was disturbed, and she didn't tell me how she died. But she said that after she died, her parents were having problems. They didn't want to live in the bungalow anymore. That's why they moved. They moved within a few months, apparently. So I thanked her. That was great. I got a load of information. As I came out, this was almost opposite Jane's bungalow. I just made sure she wasn't around. I didn't want her to see me. So I went and found the parents. And knocked on the door. Found their house and knocked on the door. It wasn't that far, about 5 miles away. I'd driven there, and I knocked on the door. A lady opened the door, about the same age as the neighbour I'd seen, sort of 70s. And I don't know why I said it. She just said yes. And I don't know why I said it. I said, I've come about Mary. I don't know why I said that. Mary, what an opening line. I expected her to slam the door shut. She just said, Mary? Oh, what about her? And I said, may I come in? I want to talk about Mary. She obviously didn't know who I was. She said, no, I'd rather you didn't come in. She said, what's this about? So I started to explain. I said, friends of mine have bought the bungalow. I told her the address. I said, I know that your daughter had died there, blah, blah, blah. And then she said, you better come in. So we went through to the lounge. Her husband was there. He didn't seem to want to, I thought he was a bit demented. He probably shouldn't say that. He didn't want to know. He wandered off. We went to the lounge. He wandered off. And I told this woman, Mary's mother, I told her the whole story. Everything, the door and everything. And she understood all of it. She said, oh, the door, Mary wouldn't let people in. She'd look through the lounge window. She didn't like them. She wouldn't open the door. And I said, yeah, why did you move in the end? Why did you leave there? And she said, because Mary was there. She wouldn't leave us alone. And it all fitted. You know, we looked at each other and we both knew this was it. It all fitted. And I said, well, now my friend Dave and his wife Jane in particular, I said, Jane is having severe problems, you know, with Mary. And this woman, she went into the hall, she came back in, she'd put the coat on. She said, take me there now. Okay. So she said something to her husband, I don't know what, went out and she came out with me, got into my car, we drove round there, stopped outside Jane's house, and this woman, she got out of the car, she marched up, ringing the front doorbell, and I followed her and I said, hang on, let me just introduce, you know. Anyway, Jane opened the door and this woman had stepped to one side, and Jane said to me, what do you want? I've told you not to come round here again. I knew it was Mary. This woman stepped next to me, looked at Jane and said, Mary, what are you doing? Jane's face, Mary's face, whoever it was, Jane's body, her face was like that, obviously recognised her mother, and she was and the woman said, what are you doing here? You did this when we were here. What are you doing now to these people? And this woman was having a right go at her. And I just stepped back and I thought I'd leave them to it. You know, this is... Anyway, then Jane, Mary, whoever she was, Jane's body, Jane said, but mummy. And this woman said, don't but mummy me. I want you to leave now. And she said, oh yeah, but mummy, no, now, this instant, you leave now. Suddenly, Jane said, oh, hello, oh, Ray, who are you? Sorry, come in. And I just said, no, it's so okay. She said, no, come in. I was kind of stunned. This lady said, I used to live here. You know, Ray's brought me around. I used to live here. Oh, yeah, come in. Anyway, Jane showed this lady around and she was saying, oh, yeah, we used to have this and we used to have a so-and-so there. And, oh, I see you've decorated this. It was all as if nothing had happened. Anyway, eventually, Jane was her old self. She was fine. And I was so relieved. I thought, oh, this is it. It's all over. It's finished. Eventually, I didn't explain to Jane how I met this woman, you know. She must have wondered afterwards, you know, how when I left, how I'd sort of brought this woman round. I did explain at a later date that it was just someone I'd known from the past. I made up some lie. Anyway, eventually we left. I took the lady home. I thanked her. You know, she said keep in touch, which I didn't do actually. I didn't. I thought that Mary might go round there, and anyway, it was all over, and I was so pleased. And that evening, I was at home, sitting in my lounge, having a celebratory beer, nice and cool, out of the fridge, and doorbell rang, and you know, I put my beer down, walked to the door, it wouldn't open, it was stuck. Tried it again, it's stuck, and I kind of, the feeling washed over me like, oh no, you know. I looked out of the lounge window, opened the window. There was a lady from next door. She said, I got a letter from you. It came this morning, delivered to me by mistake. I said, sorry, my front door's having a problem with it. I took the letter and off she went. I went back into the hall. I could not open the front door. And I thought, no, this isn't happening. It's over, isn't it? It's over. And I just said, Mary, open the door, please. I tried it and it opened.